Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about. When we think about natural hazards, earthquakes, floods come to mind, but sometimes nature cooks up something, well, way more volatile. Picture a river blocked by tons of rock and mud holding back this massive lake.
Yeah, a barrier lake. They're essentially geological time bombs.
Exactly. Okay, let's get into this. We're going to explore these things using a really recent tragic event as our guide, the Manxi Barrier Lake disaster in Taiwan. That was September 2025.
A really shocking event. It took out the Manxi Bridge, and sadly, 15 people lost their lives, with others missing.
It was devastating. But what's also striking is how many lives were actually saved. Thousands. And that comes down to understanding the risk and, crucially, acting fast.
Right, and it forces us to ask, when you know a landslide dam is going to fail, and they almost always do, what can you actually do, especially in these remote, difficult terrains?
It's like a ticking clock situation.
Precisely. Manxi really showed that when heavy engineering isn't feasible, your only real tool is preparation, monitoring, and swift action. So let's look at how that clock started ticking for Manxi.
Okay, so this lake wasn't some ancient feature. It formed pretty recently, right? Late July 2025.
That's right. A massive landslide came down triggered by Typhoon Wifa's intense rainfall, and it just completely blocked the Matayan River. Boom. Instant lake.
And the initial assessment, based on the size and how fast water was flowing in, they thought it might overtop by mid-October, gave them a bit of breathing room, supposedly.
Yeah, that was the first estimate. And credit where it's due, they didn't just sit on that information.
No, they started preparing right away. Through August, they were anticipating the worst, especially with more typhoons like Yagi potentially heading that way. They used that perceived deadline.
But then Super Typhoon Hagibis arrived in September. And it just dumped so much rain.
So that just blew the timeline out of the water.
Completely. Weeks got knocked off the forecast. And this is really where the monitoring systems became absolutely critical. They weren't just guessing anymore.
They had real-time data coming in.
Exactly. Sensors, gauges, that allowed the Central Emergency Operations Center to issue a yellow alert on September 21st.
Okay, initial warning.
But then, based on that incoming data showing the rapid rise, they upgraded it dramatically to a red alert on the morning of the 22nd.
Wow. And that triggered the big evacuation.
It did. Think about the scale. Moving nearly 1,900 households, that's over 8,500 people, out of places like Guangfu, Fenglin, Wanrong.
And they had less than 24 hours to do it.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
It was an immense logistical effort, all driven by that scientific data.
Yeah.
And it undoubtedly saved thousands of lives.
But even with everyone evacuated the way it failed on September 23rd, the speed was just incredible. Hagibis's rain pushed the water level right over the top.
The first major overtopping started around 2:5 p.m.
And the monitors caught this, didn't they? The water level dropping. How much was it?
About 14 meters in just 30 minutes.
14 meters in half an hour? That's a catastrophic flash flood right there.
Absolutely. The force of that water mixed with debris, it just obliterated the Manxi Bridge almost immediately.
And then the bigger bridge on Provincial Highway 9 collapsed soon after, by 3:30 p.m.
That's right. And the torrent, this massive wave of water and sediment, hit the main urban area of Guangfu around 4:00 p.m.
The damage must have been immense, even with the evacuation.
Oh, definitely. Property damage was severe. Agriculture took a huge hit, something like NT $257 million in losses. The lower floors in town were just buried in mud and debris. It really highlights why getting people out was paramount.
So let's step back a bit and define these things more clearly. A barrier lake, or a landslide-dammed lake. It's formed when a landslide blocks a river. Simple concept, incredibly dangerous reality.
Especially in places like Taiwan. You got steep mountains, geology that's naturally kind of fragile, and it's all sitting where tectonic plates meet. It's prime territory.
So earthquakes are a big factor, like the big 9/21 quake.
Yes, major quakes can trigger dozens of these things all at once. But perhaps even more common now are the really intense rainfall events from typhoons. Think Typhoon Morakot back in 2009, and now Manxi. Just relentless rain causing slopes to fail.
You mentioned man-made factors briefly, but they're rare.
Very rare. Things like poorly managed mining waste, maybe blasting gone wrong, but overwhelmingly, these are natural phenomena.
And the fundamental risk, it's the dam itself, isn't it? It's not engineered concrete. It's just loose stuff.
Exactly. It's a pile of rubble, basically rocks, soil, trees, whatever the landslide brought down. It's unstable, porous, and highly erodible. That's why they're called time bombs. Failure isn't a matter of if, But when and how?
Okay, that how is important. You hear terms like overflow and dam breach. Are they the same thing?
Good question. They're distinct but often related, especially in these natural dams. Overflow is simple. Water gets higher than the lowest point on the dam crest and spills over.
Just like an overfull bathtub.
Pretty much. A dam breach, though, that's a structural failure. The dam material itself gives way. It could be internal erosion, like water finding paths through the dam piping, or the whole structure just collapsing under pressure, or due to rapid erosion.
So what happened at Manchi? Was it one or the other?
It seems like it was both in sequence and very rapidly. The expert consensus points towards an initial overflow, driven by Hagibis's rain, that then almost immediately triggered a progressive partial dam breach.
Meaning the overflowing water started eating away at the dam.
Exactly. That loose material offered almost no resistance. The water quickly carved a channel, deepening and widening it, leading to a catastrophic structural collapse in minutes, not hours or days. It wasn't a gentle spillover. It was a rapid, violent failure.
And because Manchi was so remote and the terrain so unstable, getting heavy equipment in there to, say, dig a spillway beforehand wasn't really an option.
Extremely difficult, likely impossible from a safety and logistical standpoint. So they had to rely entirely on what we call non-engineering mitigation.
Which boils down to watching it like a hawk and warning people.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
But the watching is highly scientific. You mentioned the data saving lives. Can you talk about the tools they use?
Sure. It's a multi-layered approach. You've got satellite imagery giving the big picture, tracking the lake volume, changes in the dam shape.
Right, the macro view.
Then you use drones for more detailed, closer-up mapping and surveys.
Getting finer resolution.
And crucially, you have instruments on site. Water level gauges, pressure sensors, maybe even seepage monitors planted in the dam itself.
That's the ground truth. That real-time data feeds into models that help geologists assess stability and critically predict when failure might be imminent. That's what allows for those tiered alerts. Yellow, then red. It translates complex science into clear warnings for the public.
But in situations where it is possible, what engineering options do exist for dealing with these lakes, assuming you can get equipment there safely?
The main goal is always controlled drainage, getting the water level down safely before it overtops catastrophically. The most common method, if feasible, is excavating a controlled spillway or a diversion channel around the dam.
Like digging a ditch to let water out slowly.
Basically, yeah. Other options might include pumping or siphoning water out, sometimes even using controlled blasting to carefully lower parts of the dam crest. In very rare long-term situations, maybe even a bypass tunnel. But these are major undertakings.
Huge projects, and we've seen different approaches tried around the world, right? There are some key examples. China's Tanjiashan Lake after the 2008 Wenchuan earthquake is often cited.
Yes, Tanjiashan was enormous, a quake lake. The engineering challenge was immense. How do you safely drain this ticking time bomb threatening millions downstream? They successfully excavated a diversion channel.
So engineering worked there.
It did. But arguably, the bigger success was the evacuation. They moved over 250,000 people out of harm's way. It really drove home that even with engineering, timely, large-scale evacuation is absolutely vital. You can't rely on the engineering alone.
Then there's Nepal, Sinkoshi River 2014. That involved a different kind of effort.
Right. That situation was complicated because the flood path threatened communities in both Nepal and India. It required international cooperation. They ended up using the military, with careful use of explosives and machinery, to gradually lower the dam over about 45 days.
A slow, controlled release.
Exactly. And crucially, timely evacuations happened on both sides of the border. It showed these hazards don't respect political boundaries.
And sometimes the lake just stays, becomes permanent.
That can happen. Adabad Lake in Pakistan, formed by a landslide in 2010, is the classic example. Despite efforts, it overtopped naturally but then stabilized. It's actually a tourist attraction now.
Wow. But there was a cost.
Oh, a huge cost. It permanently submerged about 22 kilometers of the vital Karakoram Highway and displaced thousands from drowned villages. The solution wasn't draining the lake. It was building incredibly expensive new bypass tunnels for the highway years later. So stabilization can still mean massive disruption and economic loss.
And a historical example that serves as a warning, even when we try to intervene.
You're probably thinking of the Jethro Glacier incident in Switzerland. Way back in 1818, an ice dam formed a lake. Engineers at the time bravely tried to tunnel through the ice to drain it.
Early engineering attempt.
Very early and pioneering for its time. But despite their efforts, The ice dam failed catastrophically anyway. The resulting flood killed 44 people. It was a tragedy that actually spurred a lot of scientific study into glaciers and hazard assessment. But it's a stark reminder that intervention isn't foolproof, especially with unstable natural structures.
So bringing this all back to the individual, if you live in an area prone to landslides, especially in steep, rainy, or earthquake-prone regions like Taiwan, what are the key takeaways? We know awareness is survival, as Mon Shi showed.
Absolutely. It starts with knowing the specific warning signs for this kind of hazard. Rising water is obvious, but what's the counterintuitive sign?
Right, the one that means trouble is brewing upstream.
It's a sudden, unexplained drop in the river's flow. If your local river suddenly seems to dry up or reduce significantly after heavy rain or a quake, that could mean a landslide has dammed it upstream. That's the moment the clock starts ticking.
And the other signs, the ones that mean it's about to breach.
A distant roaring sound, like a freight train where there should be one, or feeling ground tremors when there isn't an earthquake. That's the sound and vibration of a massive amount of water and debris starting to move. If you experience any of these, report it immediately and prepare to evacuate instantly. Don't wait for confirmation.
And the response plan itself, as demonstrated so effectively at Manxi, hinges on decisiveness.
100%. Know your evacuation routes to higher ground now. Have that emergency go bag ready, yes. But the absolute key is, when the official evacuation order comes, you move. Immediately. No hesitation.
What if you genuinely can't get out in time?
Then vertical evacuation is your only option. Get to the highest possible floor of a sturdy, well-built building. Remember, these floods often carry immense debris, trees, rocks, parts of buildings. The ground floor can be incredibly dangerous even in strong structures. Aim for the second floor or higher.
Okay. And final thoughts on behavior during such an event?
Stay calm, listen to emergency responders, and critically, this is a lesson learned the hard way. In many disasters, never ever return to an evacuated area prematurely. Don't try to be a spectator. The danger can persist long after the initial flood wave. Regular community drills really help lock in these responses.
Looking back at Menji, it's clear, isn't it? A terrible tragedy, yes, but also a powerful demonstration of how crucial that scientific monitoring, clear warnings, and coordinated evacuation really are. Thousands of lives were on the line, and that system saved most of them.
It did. It shows we can't stop nature from creating these hazards, but we can potentially outsmart or at least outrun the immediate consequences if we're prepared.
So the lesson from Manxi, from Tangjishan, Sunkoshi, Atabad, even Jetro, it all points to preparation and awareness being our main shields.
Without a doubt, they are the only consistent buffers we have against these sudden, massive events. The lingering question, though, is whether everyone, governments, agencies, communities, individuals living in these vulnerable zones, has truly absorbed that lesson. Are we all genuinely ready for the next time nature winds up one of these ticking time bombs?
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell. See you guys.